it was my junior year. They had the military had a program. It was like a, I don't remember what it's called, but it was basically like a Head Start program, so you could get a year in before you actually went to basic training. And so I did that. So that was probably 1996. And so that was the day I turned 17 years old. So my parents had to sign a waiver and say, letting me join the military. So by the time I graduated from high school, I already had 1 year of service that would translate to I guess a retirement if I had stayed in that long, but I didn't. The most helpful part of boot camp would be just I guess learning to be a man, learning to be on your own, and that really you hear people talk about it, how that's when you really grow up, is in boot camp. Having that combat happen so soon, I mean, it kind of made me feel like, man, there's going to be a whole year of this, and you think, well, how are any of us going to survive through this? But like if it happened in the first hour, I mean, is this going to happen every hour? It's not wasn't a pleasant feeling. There's a lot of good people over there, a lot of good people. And I don't think people realize what it's like. It's another country, people live there. And, like the awfulness that they had to live in. Like every day, kids were getting blown up and, I mean, can you imagine if you had to, it makes me think, thank God we live in the United States. I mean, something memorable for me, the living conditions of the people that lived out in Taji, which is, I mean, this is the country. Like you think about Baghdad as this big, massive city, kind of reminds me of Miami, but the people that lived out in Taji, I mean, there was a house here and maybe, I don't know, a mile away, there's another house. There wasn't a whole lot of people living together, and I mean, they were basically living in mud huts, no plumbing, they had little canals dug to, water their crops and everything. I mean, it was pretty rough for them out there, for sure. But like bad things happen to those people daily. Like if an IED went off and, it was meant for one of our Humvees and it just knocked a tire off a Humvee and it just, killed a bunch of people around it. A bunch of innocent people basically walking around there that were, being blown up, because they were trying to get at us. Speaking of engaging the enemy, that was really difficult in Iraq because it's not like that there was a uniformed enemy like in traditional warfare. There was no, the enemy looked like a civilian. It looked like anybody else that was walking around. And people don't think about it this way, but Iraq, when you're especially in Baghdad, when you're in Baghdad, it's a massive city. It's massive. There's people walking around everywhere, and somebody could step out, fire an RPG at one of your vehicles, put it down, and just keep walking. And there's no way you would ever find him because he's in the midst of all these other people. So anyway, I left on this mid-tour leave, and I left Sergeant Hetzel in charge of my squad, and while I was home, they got hit again, and Sergeant Hetzel he wasn't killed in the initial explosion, but he had died on the way to the hospital. Another one of my friends, Jacques Bellet, lost an eye. Two of my other buddies got shrapnel in their bodies, and the Captain Kazmazak he was messed up pretty good with shrapnel, and that's probably the most difficult because I wasn't there for it. I mean, there's everybody was a leader, I guess. Like You know, you hear people say, like interviews like this, you hear people say about, you know, how awesome the guys were, and, you know, it was like a brotherhood, and, you know, you're basically fighting for the people next to you. That is, it can't be more true than that. That's exactly how it feels. And, you know, like medals or whatever, none of that stuff matters. You know, it was about the guy next to you, and like just, you know, wanting everybody to make it home, and you know, that's just not possible sometimes. Music number one, absolutely. Music number one. Falling back on music has always, you know, any problem I had in my life, music has been an escape for me. And my girlfriend at the time had bought me a little small guitar that I could bring with me. It was a little baby Taylor. And you know, after patrols or everything, I'd pick the guitar up and sit on the, you know, the front steps of my little hut or whatever. It looks like a little camper that we stayed in, but you know, I'd start playing music and people would kind of slowly gather around it. So I mean, that was kind of cool. I mean, play music for everybody, just kind of release, you know, and everybody would sing, and